Let's look at the optics of this first. This report basically shatters Donald Trump's image of a successful businessman. It means nearly every American pays more taxes than the president.
Well, I think it's actually really quite terrible, although we do know from previous revelations that his tax situation was not as rosy as or his income situation was as rosy as he has often told us. But this is actually quite astounding. $750. Nearly every American who pays taxes pays more than that. So a number of things one can conclude. Either he has extraordinarily good tax advisors, or he's an extraordinarily bad businessman, or maybe there's just a little fudging on the edges.
Well, I guess that's the big question. Is there some sort of a legal challenge that could be brought from what's in this report from the New York Times?
Well, we know that the district attorney, Cyrus Vance, is looking into questions of tax fraud in New York. We also know that there have been attempts by the part of the Democrats to get this information out into the public. And certainly there will be repercussions either immediately in the election or post facto, because the president is not above the law, and if he has not filed his tax returns properly, he's subject to fines, penalties, or even prosecution.
Just some of the details from inside this report. There are a lot of deductions in regard to money that Donald Trump got from abroad. Talk us through that.
I'm afraid I really can't. I don't know what that money is. None of us actually know, except maybe the New York Times. It does raise certain questions. Legitimate business people can both deal with countries outside the United States in one way or the other, either sending money abroad or getting money from those countries. But in the context of tax questions, I think that's. It's not unknown that people have tried to hide assets overseas.
Just something that's incredible. I mean, some of these expenses, $70,000 in business expenses, apparently related to his hair.
Have you seen his hair? Well, that's actually not entirely for a performer. Having expenses for beauty products and hair is not at all that extraordinary, although it would be rather unusual for a businessman to claim that he needed to spend $70,000 to make sure that his hair was perfect. I would look into that particular, although it's not the biggest of his deductions, I would certainly want to look into that one a little more closely.
Well, what's interesting, and I mean, we're getting back to this idea of what's really legit or what's not legit, and the bigger question of will voters care? I mean, will the things that come out of this report actually have an influence on people who are undecided?
Well, I think Jim and Sue, who are sitting at home worrying about whether they can afford to put bread on the table or buy new shoes for the kids, are going to be kind of appalled to find out that the president of the United States, who claims that he is one of the wealthiest people on earth, only paid $750 in U.S. taxes in 2017. That's going to hit home very heavily.
Now, of course, this comes just after Trump announced his Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett. A lot of controversy over that ahead of the election. Is there any chance that some sort of, again, legal challenge could come up about this report that might slow the nominating process for the Supreme Court justice position?
Well, theoretically, anything that happens can slow that process. But in fact, if you look at the Constitution and the rules available in the Senate to slow things down, if Mitch McConnell wants to move that forward, he can. He may not make it before the election, but he can certainly get it done before January 20. That said, anything bad, any bad news could, in fact, have a significant impact. Although I suspect that the two issues people will make the difference between the two issues, and they won't have that much of an impact.
Joseph, just to wrap up, all of this is dropping just ahead of the debate on Tuesday. What are the key things to watch from that debate, do you think, tomorrow night?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that President Trump is going to try to paint Joe Biden as sleepy. He's already said that many times before, and he did announce over the weekend that he was going to insist that Joe Biden have a drug test. I think that's probably not going to be that important this time. Because now we're going to be focus is going to be on deceit, tax fraud, and the general decency of the man who currently occupies the White House.
Joseph, thanks for taking the time to speak to us. Joseph Smallhoover, the International Council for Democrats Abroad. Thank you so much.